didn't work. Yeah, oh, look at that. The hell did I not put that in? All right, welcome to News with a View, a podcast hosted by myself, John A. Costa. Opinions are all mine and no one else, but I do use facts from the main media outlets. I am a conservative. I am a Republican. I'm not MAGA. I'm a constitutionalist, which makes me a Federalist. And before people start screaming and yelling and carrying on, Democrats can be constitutionalists and Federalists. So we have a common bond. It's called the Constitution. And the Constitution is what keeps everything between the guardrails. I speak mainly about federal legislation or topics that affect everyone. Not so much state issues, though I will go into state issues a lot, but not diving headfirst into that. When I talk about federal issues, of course, I'm talking about the president. I'm talking about executive orders. I am talking about Supreme Court, the Congresses, which make up the House of Representatives and the Senate. I do get into some of the court challenges. I'm not a lawyer. I have no legal experience other than what is written in here, which still makes pretty good common sense when you're looking at it. So not too much wackiness on that end. I try to be as non-biased as I can be. And if something makes sense, it makes sense, no matter where it's brought from or brought to, or who brings it to the forefront. A good idea is a good idea. But a good idea also has to be practical. It also has to be meaningful, and that it could be accomplished. That there's a path, that there's a solution. I was dealing with a friend, and I consider him a friend, where he was all for all nations giving up their nuclear weapons, and there's actually a UN proposal on that started whenever. And the conversation was, once you get knowledge like that, it's like toothpaste out of a tube. You can't get it back in there. It's just a mess. And that while the idea of a nuclear-free world is certainly, it would be a wonderful thing. But is it can it practical happen? Can it be carried out? Now, what do you do? Now you have to have a national army, a worldwide army, to go after these countries that might want to, create nuclear weapons secretly. And it's just not feasible. I mean, it's a great idea and it would be nice. But, this is, again, someone who I would consider is a liberal with a utopian, well, it can be, I get it. I get the utopian mentality of being able to, live in the flowers and in the sun, and no one goes hungry and no one gets sick, and money is not an issue. It's just I want, I get. But that's not how the world works. And when you get stuck in that loop, it becomes silly. It's a silly loop. And I'm not saying that, that wouldn't be a wonderful thing if it could happen. But, so you don't have nuclear weapons, but you just have bigger weapons. So, yeah, nice idea. And, but I will crap all over it because it's not doable. Not doable. It seems in this program that I do really jump on the Democrats. And I do because, man, they just open themselves up for it. You have people that don't want to follow the laws, but just want us to follow laws that they say should be followed. Just read the first 3 paragraphs. Don't go on. Stop. And that's it. That's all you should be doing. And it doesn't work that way. And there's lots of things going on in the courts and a lot of decisions being made by the courts on very serious matters. But these are matters that are constitutional matters. And what President Trump is doing, he's not expanding the executive powers that the presidents have. He's defining them. And he's forcing it. And why is he being forced to? Because the Democrats won't let him use the powers that he has. And so the Democrats challenge it, and it goes right up to the Supreme Court. And then when the Supreme Court goes, no, the president can do that, they all scream and yell, no, the Supreme Court's no good. And it's the crying child syndrome. They didn't get their way, so of course, mommy and daddy are bad. And we hate you, and we're not going to listen to you. And you saw that the other day with Senator Schumer on the floor of the Senate saying no one respects ICE. No one in America respects border protection. No one. And I'm like, well, I do. I know my wife does, so that's at least 2. I know my brother does, so I'm going to say 3. I know the guys that I talked to about it, that's about 25 guys. They all agree. So when you get a person like that up there, pounding, and, he thinks that if you pound the desk or you scream or you say, I hate you, that's going to change the situation. And it doesn't. It doesn't. Schumer knows that there are laws on the books on how to handle people that come into this country illegally. He knows that. And yet he goes, I don't want them to apply. They're bad. Change it. Well, we can't because you guys won't let us change it. Yeah, well, that's the way the system works. That's why we're a republic and not a democracy. Just so you can understand, if you think we live in a democracy, we do not live in a democracy. This was never a democracy. We live in a republic with democratic principles, but we are not a democracy. And Schumer saying everyone, doesn't want them, that's mob rule. That's why we don't have that. And these people that, are screaming for that don't understand what a republic is, what a republic stands for, and how it operates. And I can only blame us as parents, as allowing schools to throw out these teachings, civics, saying our history is all lies. Well, some of it's embellished, and the victors do get the right history. But there are a lot of people that publish books that say it's contrary to the history. So they're not being suppressed. It's just not being, challenged. And, you could say, hey, we took the land from the Indians. Yeah, and the Indians took it from other Indians because that's the way it works. And sorry, but that was the back in the day. That was the big dog principle, and we're trying to get away from that, but it still happens. You look at the, probably from the mid-1400s to the 1940s, and that was the imperialistic period. Europe was expanding, and they were realizing there was all these other places out there that have not been touched, that are full of natural resources, which are full of people. I love when, they go, America is to blame for slavery. No, sorry. Sorry to disappoint you liberals that scream up and down that it was the United States. The largest influx of slaves were taken by Spain. Yeah, take a look at it. And if you think that white people could get 20 feet inside Africa without being mowed down by people. So who was it that was capturing the inhabitants, the people of Africa? Well, they were Arabs. And they were the people that went in there and captured tribes. And they had warring tribes that didn't like another village because they had more, or whatever the reason was. They'd side up with them and go, well, listen, we don't want to come after you. That's an understanding. But those people are a real pain in the butt for you. So why don't we help you go in there? We'll supply you with weapons and everything else and have our people with you. And you go in there and you capture them. Well, we don't want them killed, but if you have to, you have to. But we need people. So, men, women, and children. But if you have to make examples of people, make it of the women and the children, and just grab the men, able-bodied men. You wipe off the old, the feeble. You could wipe off women, grandmas, and children, just, or you take them, whatever. We don't care. We just want X amount, and that's the way it was. America didn't have the shipping to bring these people over in the amounts that were brought over. It was the Portuguese, it was the Spanish, it was the English. And towards the end, it was American, because those countries had already now stopped the slavery. But we kept it going, and there was other countries that kept it going too. But if you want to know the history of slavery, look it up. It's very interesting, but it did not start in the Americas. In what we call America, they were basically sent to Jamaica, the Caribbean, and South America for sugarcane, for making rum, for gold, for mining, for wood, and food. So, but you have Democrats screaming up and down that slavery, it was America. America did the slavery. Well, America did have slavery. And George Washington owned slaves. And George Washington had no problem with owning slaves, because back then that was the mindset. You could do that. It wasn't so much in the North, population-wise, because most of the people that came over were not wealthy people. Where in the South, that land was granted to these wealthy people, and by England and by the king, and you had to take care of the king. You had to take care. They provided the British provided protection and pathways, but England didn't want America to compete with it. They didn't want to have to compete with themselves. So for the longest time, you couldn't make iron. You couldn't have smelteries. You couldn't do that. You sent all those raw materials somewhere else. They did it, and then they sold it back to you. And a lot of Americans were saying, hey, why do I have to pay so much for nails? Because we got to dig it up, give you the ore, you take it over there, you produce it, then you ship it back, and now instead of costing me, 2 cents a nail, it's costing me 10 cents a nail. And I'm being taxed on it to boot. Well, it was the only way for the British to pay soldiers, food, the logistics. And then as America got bigger and things moved out of territories where things could be made, and the British were like, hey, we know what you're doing. We're not happy about it, but, all right, we're going to turn a blind eye, but, you're still British citizens, and as such, subject to British law, so don't go too crazy. And, the taxation without representation and the Americas wanted a seat in Parliament. And they said no. And thus started, years and years and years of fighting. Just hostilities going, and then finally reaching its top. But you have the Democrats of today, your Schumers. You had Cory Booker at a speech in, I think it was Detroit, scream that we need foot soldiers out there to protect our democracy. So he wants people who are soldiers to protect democracy. Mr. Booker, Senator Booker, we have a police that you want to take away, and now you're saying you want to insert your people in. Right? Because of this darkness erupting over America. There is no darkness. There is no darkness, Senator Booker. What there is are criminals who are in the United States illegally. There are people in the United States here illegally who are taking our tax dollars. If that's the darkness you're talking about, I agree with you. And if you want the foot soldiers to protect our republic, then we have them. They're called ICE and Border Patrol. And he went on further to say, we need to redeem the dream of America. Well, Mr. Booker, you idiot. Dreams don't come true. What comes true is hard work, a plan. Not just crying about something, but offering logical and practical solutions to issues. Not just letting the people in and going, you're in, you're here. You want to do that to your own front door of your house, have at it. You're allowed to do that. But the borders, that's my front door, sir. And we have laws to say who's allowed to enter that front door and how. So, Senator, if you don't understand that basic principle, then it's time to get out of office. And if it's at all possible, we will help you get out of office. You have State Representative Brittany Peterson, and she's out of Colorado, come up with weird numbers that, 90% of those people or 70% of those people in ICE detention have no criminal conviction, and that over 90% are either non-criminals or non-violent offenders. If you are in a detention facility, it is because of one major factor. You are here illegally. If you are a criminal, you've been arrested, you are charged with a crime, and you are here illegally, then you go into our court system. And then you are afforded all the rights thereof that a citizen would have, except for your right to stay in America. That you do not have. You could be incarcerated in America, and then when you have fulfilled your obligation under the law, you're booted out. That can happen. Or we could say, listen, this crime's going to stay. It's not going away. You leave. We can't touch you. And by the way, your family goes with you if they're here illegally also. So she cried and said that ICE is not acting in accordance with its stated focus of high-risk individuals. No, they're doing that. But if, like I used as an example, if I pull you over and the person who's driving is a criminal, and we arrest that criminal, and then we find out that the person in the back seat is here illegally, never done anything wrong. They work. They just have never done anything wrong. Nothing shows up when we check out who they are. But they're not citizens, and they can't prove that they have a green card. They can't prove that they're here under any type of status. Well, then you're illegal. And we arrest you civilly. Not, yes, yeah. Not in the sense of, first let me put this napkin on your hand, and then, no. You're arrested under our civil law. And we don't let those people go. It's not catch and release, sweetheart. And you guys just don't understand that. You just refuse to understand that. Adam Schiff chimed in and said, oh, no. How is funding DHS, how is that supposed to help your life? He's a lawyer, right? Supposedly a smart guy. How about if you go and ask that question to victims of crimes committed on their person or their family or their business by illegally people in the United States? Why don't you go ask them what they feel about it? Why don't you go and put out, this is how much it costs the taxpayers because of these people? Are you okay with that? Or should they never have been allowed in? And just because they're in now doesn't mean they stay in. How about that? No, Schiff, you won't do that. Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, another political moron, that they open their mouths thinking that, oh, no one's going to say anything because everyone's afraid of being canceled. Well, get off that bandwagon, because that's not happening anymore. He says Americans are suffering. And he is putting in legislation to stop that suffering of Americans. And Chris, I'll tell you the same thing I told Adam. We're spending billions because your team, you, Obama, Biden, Clinton, let these people in, catch, release, don't do anything to them, and all honestly, the only people that I feel have an absolute right when they put their big toe on the United States is to get protection and temporary protection status would be the Cubans. Because they have no channel to get here. All these other countries have channels to get here. They do not. But the reason Americans are suffering is because we're spending hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars getting rid of the people that should not be here, who are taking hundreds of billions of dollars away from us on top of what it costs for the police and ICE and detention centers and logistics and courts. And this was done on purpose by the Democrats, folks, to hide criminals in plain sight. All this money could have been used for schools, EBT, medical, supplements. Gone. So, the Democrats fail to realize that both houses and the White House won because of crime and immigration. Very left issues. So what do the Democrats do in 2026? They take even a steeper left turn. Political suicide. They're not listening to what even their rank and file people who voted for Trump, who kept the Senate red, who made the House of Representatives red. The Democrats are failing to listen, to realize there's some Democrats out there that are saying, hey, this is the wrong path. It's not the one we should be taking. And if we're taking it, we shouldn't be hitting that curve so fast. Slow it down. But they won't listen. They won't listen. We're already seeing fake polling numbers come out, and the Democrats are they're going to sweep. Look what we're doing. But now you're starting to hear some whisperings on these channels going, yeah, the data that these people are using, it's not predictable consistency. And you're not asking the right questions. You're asking questions to elicit an answer that you want to get. You're not asking, hey, just, give them a yes, no, all the way down the line on questions. Do you believe, the questions I would be asking on the street questions. Do you believe that there should be open borders? That'd be my first question. No. Okay. Do you believe that there should be a path for people to come into this country? You know you're going to solicit the answer of yes. Okay. Do you believe that there should be people then who are at our border making sure that number one and number two are being handled under whatever the procedures and laws are for such entry? Well, yeah. Okay. Do you believe that people that come into the United States illegally, that they circumvent 1, 2, and 3? Do you think that they should stay? Now, that's where the questions then branch out. Yes, I think they should stay. Okay. And when the government has to pay for these people, are you okay that other programs for citizens has to be affected because there's only one pot for that money to come from? And are you okay with that? And if they go, no, why can't there be more money put into the pot? I go, didn't get there yet. First, there has to have something happen that creates the need for that. So now we have that. So less money for an American single mom with 4 kids, so that the illegal mom with 4 kids can get what was once our citizens. Now it's not. Because at the end of the day, that pot runs out of money. Someone's not getting it because the pot was only set for so many people. So, of course, the idea then is, well, the pot needs more money, right? Where does that money come from? Taxes. Right? So now I got to increase the taxes. Who do I increase the taxes on? The people who are allowing this to happen? The voters who have now voted to let these people in and stay? Or do I go after the companies? Oh, go after the companies. Okay, go after the companies. Let's do that. Companies go, hey, they raised, the illegal alien tax on us. That translates to 30 jobs. Give me 15 jobs that could be automated. Okay, these jobs can be automated. Okay. Let 15 people go. We can absorb the other costs, but I can't do a full, And now 15 people have lost their job. Yet, all these people, because you allowed them in, that pot has to keep growing. What do you think happens? How do you think that happens? So, well, maybe we should limit that. Well, how do I limit them if I don't know they're coming in? Oh, you know what? I'll tell you how we limit it. The people that are trying to come in through the front door doing it the right way, lock it. Sorry, closed today. We are at our quota. And that's how this would work to the leftists. Because there is no rationale. There is no plan. We have immigration so that we can regulate, we can throttle. And they don't want that. The Democrats also don't want audits. We've seen that in California. We've seen that in Minnesota. We're seeing that in Illinois. We're seeing that in New York. I'm sure there's some red states out there that have a lot of problems too. You had Elon Musk said there's trillions out there. No, no, no. Liar, liar. You're a liar. You're a liar. And now the government's turning around going, could be trillions out there. Because just in one quick look in what's going on in Minneapolis, we're up to 19 billion and climbing. And just touching what's going on in California, we're up to about $300 billion. And we haven't really even gotten started yet. We haven't looked in other areas. We haven't looked in Colorado yet. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Virginia, Georgia. So I think we need to start looking and realizing that if, and it's always an if, because if I had a crystal ball, instead of seeing who's going to win the elections, I'd be looking at, give me 6 lotto numbers, and then I get my money. I don't, horrible person that I am, I'm not going to be bothered by people because I will have already diversified my money and protected it because I am then super wealthy. But after the win by the Republicans and they hold what they have or get stronger, which I think they're going to get stronger, then Doge must come back. And it must be there. And you have J.D. Vance running a Doge type of thing, but now J.D. Vance is going to be the president. And then he needs to put someone in there under Doge, and Doge has to become a truly a true audit. I mean, we had the General Accounting Office, the GAO, and that really didn't work because all this happened anyway. But you had all these splits of organizations and empire building, and it has to end now. But we just see the Democrats spiraling to the ground. And instead of pulling parachutes, they're swan diving. You have your Omars, who refuses to cooperate now with hearings. She made a mistake filing her form, listing her assets. And now it went from $30 million down to $96,000. And the company that she was listing as with her husband is now not being listed. I mean, yeah. Yeah, fraud. Swalwell, he's gone. And he was loved. He was loved by the left. Oh. Well, the Democrats are now saying, yeah, we knew a lot of shady activity was going on with him, and we knew a lot of shady activity that was happening. And you had Representative Tony Gonzalez out of Texas that, it was Texas? I think it was Texas. That was having a relationship with a staff member, which goes against the ethics code for his office, and he resigned, as he should. Now, if he wanted to have a relationship with her, he should have had her removed. Find another job. I'll make a phone call. And then you're not, and I go to the ethic board and I go, hey, listen, hypothetical question here. An ex-staff member, do I have to report if I have a relationship with that person? And if so, how far separated do they have to be? And I'm not saying it's me, I'm just using me as an example. I have a question. And, he could have gotten an answer and then did what he wanted to do. And, nothing happens in secret when you're in political office. So he was trying to have the best of both worlds, and guess what? That don't always work, folks. You have Letitia James, who's coming under fire. Who's been under fire for lying on loan applications, not just once. And she has a penchant to lie and misinform. And what she lied about can't be considered a mistake or an oversight. I will give Senator Schiff, who I have absolutely no political love for, who was indicted on filling out his application incorrectly for a home that was purchased and mortgaged through a federal institution, which then makes that form. And he said it was going to be owner occupied, and that means that becomes theoretically your legal address. And now he's a senator. He works between California and Washington. And I would say that if he's living in that house, that's owner-occupied. And if he's living in his house when he's in California, that's owner-occupied. This home wasn't being purchased for an investment. He didn't want to sleep in hotels. All right, I'm good with his explanation. And he answered it, and he goes, no one said anything to me about it during the process. I could have looked and said, hey, question it, but he didn't. Because he did not think, I'm going to be the owner-occupant. Now, on there it said, are you going to be the owner-occupant, for, take 365 days, divide it in half, and add 1, and that would make that place your owner occupancy. Doesn't do that. Now, if he was renting the house out when he wasn't there, or renting rooms out and something, then I'd go, well, yeah, you might have filled that out incorrectly. And, you didn't catch it. All right. I don't know what the remedy would be for it. Other than, hey, your bank approved it, so c'est la vie. Do you have a relationship with that bank? Or you were an owner in that bank? No? Anyone in your family that you know of? An owner or shareholder in that bank? No? Oh, great. Great. Hey. Thank you. And that would be it. Letitia James, on the other hand, said that was going to be her permanent residency. She lives in New York. No reason for her to be in Virginia or wherever she was. So she lied. Outright lie. Outright lie. And she must be punished. Fannie Willis, another one. She lied. She lied. You can't do that. You get burned. Just ask some of Trump's lawyers who lied. See what happens. And that's it for the news right now. 52 minutes. This is a live show going out. I am recording it, but I don't know if I'll make a playlist out of it. I might. And I'm trying to find some good stuff that the Democrats are doing. Or wanting to do, and then I start reading about it, and then compare it on what they want, and it's like, oh my God, this is horrible. How can they even think about doing that? And I'll do that show Monday. And I'm 99.9% certain I will not do a Sunday show. This is a Saturday show. I said I wasn't going to do it, but yet here I am. All right, everyone, be safe. Quick little note here, I will be putting up on the screen tomorrow, the 26th, right, from 12 noon to 4 p.m. at Socrates Station in Socrates, South Carolina. That's between Murrells Inlet and Myrtle Beach. We'll be having a benefit spaghetti dinner to help a cause of feeding people and helping families out in the immediate area who need help. This is a legitimate organization, so it's on the up and up. And it's from 12 noon till 4 p.m. There'll be raffles, there'll be prizes. There is a cash bar that will be open. $10 a head, and you eat. Pay a couple of bucks for a soda, whatever. But come join it. That's Socrates Station. And that's right off the 707. And a great place to go. So I hope to see you there. Please give to a charity. If you can give to a charity, that's wonderful. Just make sure it's a legitimate charity, because you don't want to be a victim while you're trying to help victims. Doesn't make sense. If you're not interested in that, please think about giving to a food bank. A food bank always needs food, of course, but they also need monetary donations to address right and set straight issues in front of them at that very, very moment. They know what to buy. They have the whole system set up, and many are run by church groups. Many are run by the group that's going on Sunday, under the wings of an angel. Always say a prayer. Prayer does work, no matter what a Democrat might tell you. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and good night, unless something monumental happens today. I'll see you all Monday. All right, everyone. Be safe as I fade to black. No, now as I fade to black.